Welcome to the Tennessee Performing Arts Center's Inside Out podcast. Today, we speak with cast members from the Broadway touring production Girl from the North Country. Girl from the North Country is part of HCA Healthcare TriStar Health's Broadway season at TPAC, presented in partnership with Nissan. And we also want to thank our Inside Out sponsor, Vanderbilt University. Welcome to the Tennessee Performing Arts Center's Inside Out webinar discussion. Inside Out is sponsored by Vanderbilt University and is part of TPAC Education and Community Engagement. Today, we are honored to have with us cast members from the upcoming production of Girl from the North Country, which will be at TPAC at the end of January. Welcome, everyone. And I would love, first thing, I would love for you all to introduce yourselves. Let us know where you're from originally and what role you play in the show.
Hi, everybody. My name is John Schiappa. I'm originally from the Chicagoland area where I grew up, and I play the role of Nick Lane.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sharaé Moultrie. I'm originally from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I play Marianne Lane.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Biggers. I'm originally from South Bend, Indiana, and I play Jean Lane.
Excellent. Well, you're on tour right now. You all are in Washington, D.C., right?
Yes.
That's right.
Excellent. Well, tell us a little bit about this show has had quite the journey with COVID and everything. So could one of you tell us a little bit about the journey of the show, its creation on Broadway, and then now on the tour?
The show, I believe, started at the Old Vic in London and had sort of a successful workshopping and run there, and it was moved right away to the West End, where it also was very successful. And from the West End, it came immediately from there to New York City, to the Public Theater, where it was given its first American production and premiere, and was overwhelmingly sort of loved and acclaimed, and the process began to move it up to Broadway. They had to wait a year before they could get a theater was available. And we finally opened in March of 2020. See this coming like a freight train. We opened on a Thursday, recorded the cast album on a Sunday and Monday, and closed Wednesday evening after the show.
Oh my goodness.
Because of COVID, everything closed. The show then, our producers fought a way back to it, and a year later we reopened on Broadway. We ran for several months, and the Omicron wave came and just sort of crushed everything again, at which time we shut down for a period until that ended. And we reopened in time to have a limited engagement run through the Tony Award season, win a Tony Award for orchestration, and then the planning started for the tour.
That's crazy. We've had a couple of shows come through this year that had similar stories. And Ben and Sharaé, were you involved with this show then, or when did you become involved with the show?
I didn't. I just joined the show with the tour, but I did see the show, the first preview back from COVID, which was quite an experience. It was very cool. I remember seeing John on stage, actually. I don't think.
Wow. Yeah, you never told me that. I didn't know you'd saw that. It was crazy. That was a crazy performance because everybody in the theater was so excited that the theater had been reopened. It was magical. They were all there because they're lovers of the arts, lovers of the theater. So it was really a special night.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, you're totally right. You could really feel that energy in the room, and it's a show that does not encourage clapping. But I remember there was a lot of clapping that night because people were just so excited to be out.
Yeah,
I would love for each of you, but one of you in particular, to give like a little longer synopsis. What is the show about? And, who is the girl from the North Country? Is there a girl?
Big question.
That's it, right? Everybody will tell you it's somebody different, which is what makes the show really interesting. Everybody kind of has it. Even within the cast, people think, oh, no, I know who that is. And it's fascinating.
Yeah, that's one of the fun things about the show. It's
Yeah,
really open to interpretation. But I can start with what it is a little bit, and then you guys jump in and add some more. But it takes place in 1934, right after the Great Depression. Takes place in Duluth, Minnesota, small town. It really sort of centralizes around a family, the Lane family, our family. Um, who run a rundown guest house. And it really is a snapshot into their lives and the lives of all of the strangers that end up living or staying or sort of finding their way through that guest house. And you kind of get to see all of the relationships that are formed, all of the challenges that they each have to face. Each of the characters has their own challenge that they have to deal with, and how those challenges impact how they navigate their space within within the guest house is very interesting and causes a lot of fun times as well as some very interesting times.
that was perfect. I have nothing to add. That nailed it.
I'm blown away. I didn't know you could describe the show that well.
Yeah, that's really great.
So the show really, it's kind of like what I like to call a snapshot in time kind of show, because the action takes place within just 1 week, right?
Actually, just a couple of nights.
Just a couple of nights.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to us about the setting, because it's a little bit different than some of the shows that we have that come through here. Talk to us about what people are going to see when they see the set itself.
Take it, Ben.
Oh, I'd love to. Well, the setting, it's inside the boarding house, and it kind of takes place in there. It's really, suggestions of rooms and and it kind of takes place also in and out of reality as well as we go in and out of the song. So it's it's very spare. It's not a complicated set except for, all of the props that we have to deal with, a lot of spoons and coffee mugs and stuff like that. But other than that, it's just inside this house the whole time, which is really what makes it such a snapshot.
Yeah, and some of the photos that we saw, there were like microphones that that the cast would get around and sing. Do those come and go, or are they stationed the whole time?
They kind of come and go in and out of the show. I think most of the scenes sort of take place in the reality, right? It's in that boarding house, in that kitchen. So that's where you see the family table, you see the coffee mugs and things like that have been referenced. And then once we get out of a scene and the music comes along, that's sort of when the microphones appear sort of out of nowhere. Either characters will bring them on, or they've been set to the side and we place them a little bit more in the central part of the scene. And then the lighting does a lot of the work to help you focus on what you should be watching at that moment. But I think the microphones really sort of help to elevate and make sure people understand that the music is a little bit outside of what's happening in reality.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a narrator to the piece who will step up to that microphone and give more information and backstory and future story, and while you're watching action on the stage happening. It is a memory play, ultimately, a memory show. And there are little discoveries throughout the play. And then there are a lot of unanswered questions that the audience will have to answer for themselves. And interestingly enough, what I love about it, when I love theaters, it's best when the person sitting next to you has a different opinion of that character, or what was the motivation for that character. That's when it's really great, that it hits the audience on an individual level.
Mm-hmm. And do you find in different parts of the country, people react differently to different characters? Or?
Absolutely.
Even different reactions.
Yeah. That's kind of the for me, the excitement of touring the show. I've never toured, and I always felt like the show never got its full, because of COVID, it never got its full run in New York. So to take it across the country and take it to where people live and feel what they react to has been really fascinating and cool to me. There's a whole sort of blue collar vibe to it, that people working hard to survive and make a living and scratch it out, and it's interesting to see where people react to the piece. For instance, a good example is we started in Minneapolis, which, it's Dylan's birthplace, that state. And those audiences were laughing and getting lines that I did not even know were funny. They understood every reference in a different way. And then those references in other cities, you find that they respond to different places in the play. And it's really cool. It's very cool.
So I can't wait to sort of hear some of the reactions to certain lines and things when we get further south, when we go to the West Coast and things like that. It was such a treat starting the tour in Minnesota, because there's so many, geographical references to the state. And they, like John said, they got every single one of them. And I'm really excited to see how some of the other things.
Yeah, I am too. I'm really fascinated by it. It's a treat to be able to go across the country and experience that.
Well, you talk about how they react to certain characters, and you in particular play a family. John, you play the father, and Ben and Sharaé play the kids. Talk about your characters and their specific role in this show. I believe John, you are the owner of the boarding house,
right,
where the 2 nights of action take place. So talk about what are your characters going through in this snapshot in time?
So I'll start because I think it'll lead to my children. Nick is this guy who is just trying to keep his head above water. He is juggling and running as fast as he can to make everything work and get his kids launched out into the world. He's just trying to make it and get his kids launched successfully, and then his worries will be over, I think. There's a lot of that. I always felt like Nick is a guy who's just one repair bill away from complete destitution. He's constantly owing money. He's in debt. He's struggling to keep the place repaired. He's not very good at expressing how he feels. He's not really good with his kids at all. He often says the wrong thing. I mean, I think there are plenty of people that can relate to parts of Nick. I think anybody that's been a parent or a child will have some connection to Nick and his kids and his struggle and his journey. He's just juggling. He's just trying to keep the balls in the air, and he's not very good at it. I love that they both laugh at me. They're like, "Yeah, that's right."
No, it's true. It's so true. I always think of my dad whenever I watch the show or just am in these scenes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've had this conversation with my dad in so many words, so many times.
As have I, like some of the exact words.
No, I play Gene Lane, who's Nick's son, and yeah, we're just catching Gene at a very bad time in his life. It's a bad couple of days for Gene. He is an aspiring writer, but he's uninspired. And he's very much 20 years old, and he's going through this breakup, which is devastating. And Gene is a self-destructive kind of guy. He's numbing all of his pain with alcohol, and I feel he's very sort of distraught at the way fortune has turned for his family. His mother is suffering from this illness, and his sister is, as Sharaé will say, also going through a crisis of her own. And he's just a very sensitive guy, who doesn't know really how to deal with these emotions. And so because his role model of a father is absolutely no good at any of that. Yeah, exactly. It's and the thing that's so brilliant about the writing too, that I seriously just love about this show, is I feel like Connor just nails those those moments with your family where you've been wanting to have that conversation for so long, but neither of you can say it, and it just doesn't come up. The real thing that you both need to say to each other, it never happens. It's such brilliant writing. I love getting to do the show, obviously. But yes, that's my character.
So I'm experiencing a little bit of my computer is glitching a little bit. So if you can't hear me, let me know and I'll stop and restart or whatever. But my character is Mary Ann Lane. She is the adopted daughter of Nick and Elizabeth Lane. A story how she ends up with this family. But as you can see, you know, she's the Black member of the family, and she has her own issue with that, and then also or her own sort of dealings with that. But I think one of her biggest issues is that she's pregnant, mysteriously pregnant. I won't go any further than that. You have to come see the show to understand or try to understand what has happened there. But she's dealing with this pregnancy. And so all of the effects of that, her family sort of adjusting how they are thinking about her. Again, John mentioned that he's trying to sort of prepare them or set them up for success and how this pregnancy impacts that. And then she also just has this sort of inner longing for something more and for something great, I think. I think she is one of those characters that works so hard just to sort of make sure that things are, you know, continuing to be what they are, how they're supposed to be. She is trying to take care of her ill mother, trying to keep the household together as much as possible with dealing with the issues that she's already carrying, right? And then there are several characters that sort of enter into the boarding house, and one particular that sort of changes her world a little bit, and she has to adjust to that and figure out what that means for her and her future. So yeah, she is sort of figuring things out by trying to, again, keep things together within herself and then within the family unit.
Yeah, because the setting being during the Depression, and that time, I mean, in the US was so many people had to just put their dreams and hopes like on hold and care for their families as best that they could. And I think that this show is a really good snapshot of that kind of struggle. And then we have, you know, the music, of course, which inspired the whole story. Bob Dylan's music is used in a different way than, like, I would say a traditional musical would use music. How do you describe the way the music is used within the story?
Well, the quote counter, if the scenes are the vinegar, the music is the honey, which is a great give and take, yin and yang to any kind of a story. It is not a traditional musical in the sense where the characters sing forwards the narrative of the story with the words of that music. It can be affecting the emotion that of the scene. It can be a release for that. It can be it's, you know, the best way I can describe it is like Bob Dylan's lyrics. There's no straight line. There's no straight line from A to B. It is a crooked line, and the play is that way too. And the music, it's a reflection of the music and how Bob Dylan writes. But what I find amazing about it and poetic is it's using his music in surprising ways. I'll give one example that one of the songs I love is "I Want You." And if you've ever heard the original version of that song, it's catchy. It's what it is. But in this piece, it's a very special and magical moment. And I don't want to go into why, but I find the way that Simon, our orchestrator and arranger, figured out how to use that piece of music to tell the story of yearning and love was incredible. That's a personal favorite for me.
Yeah, it's interesting as I've talked to several people who, you know, they're Bob Dylan fans, and then some who never listened to his music before, but love how it's used in the show, and they become a fan of his because of the show. So I find that, you know, wonderful, interesting also. But talk to us about the instrumentation. You mentioned that a little bit. Do we have an orchestra in the pit? Are there musicians on stage? How is the music accompanied?
Well, go ahead, Ben. You go.
No. It's a 4-piece band. It's a 4-piece band on stage. with,
So they're on stage with you the whole time? Are they just kind of off to the side, or?
No, they incorporate into the story. They're part of the story. They music is a huge part of the story. And having them on stage and with us in scenes just kind of magnifies that and kind of brings the music into an emotional part of the storytelling. And on top of that, everybody in the show plays something, whether it's shakers or tambourines. They're the Burks will sit in with the band at the drums and play the drums. It's all inclusive, and that's another part of the show that I think is unique and magical. And everybody plays something, everybody sings.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So this play, it's set during the Depression, and each character, because this is a boarding house, and you don't go to a boarding house unless, you're struggling a little bit, I would say. And so each of the characters are going through hard times, are struggling. Is there a message of hope within the story? And one of the pictures that we were showing, you're all laughing at the table. Talk to us about the hope or the joy that can be found in this story that is set in such a, it's during the Depression, so it's during a hard time.
I think it's about the human connection, and about how in hard times that human connection becomes even more important and needed. And there's that, and it's about survival. It's about the human spirit and its ability to survive and persevere and push through and move on and press on to the next thing. And that's my feeling about it. That's the hope in it and the strength of the human spirit. And you get it through all of these different wacky characters and situations, and I find that to be this emphasis of the story.
I think that's well said. I couldn't say it any better. I totally agree, and I think that's really the only time you can find hope and can find your mettle, and what you're made of is during a hard time like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think John said it pretty perfectly. But I think the only thing that I would add is that there's all a reason to be hopeful. So if, these folks, I think if these folks during the Great Depression can find that little piece of joy, that little bit of hope, we, in 2023 should be able to find some hope no matter what hard times we may fall upon us. There's always some sort of glimmer of hope that you should be holding on to and pressing on towards.
Oh, that's wonderful. So yeah, I was going to ask what you all want folks to walk away with after they see the show. I think that's a great message. Sharaé, anything else that you want the audiences to experience?
I think what I like about this show is that the audience usually takes away their own experience from it. It's not something that is dictated to you. It's not like you should feel this way or you should feel that way. People will identify with parts of the story based on their own lives and their own experiences, and they'll walk away with that. And it can be very different from the person sitting next to you. And that's what I love about theater, especially this piece and what Connor has done. It actually makes people talk and discuss the play a lot. Like, what do you think happened here? How do you think that happened? Or why would they have, done this or that? And everybody has their own answer. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say a very similar answer is, the show is going to give you a reflection of what you're bringing to it. It's so fun to hear audiences talk afterwards because they all have different answers. They all focused on different things. Some of them latched on to characters. Some of them are very frustrated by certain characters. It's really fun. That's why it's a really beautiful piece and a fun piece to do.
Sharaé, anything to add?
I think just remembering that we are all human, and there's the connection that we share in some of the most simple things. Like the simple things of life can be so beautiful and so telling about our relationships with each other. And so I think that those are the things, remembering that we're human, that there's hope, and that there's joy in the world out there.
Well, that is fantastic. We are looking so forward to you being in Nashville the end of January. And I just want to thank you for being so generous with your time with us today. And I can't wait to see the show. Thank you so much for participating today.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for having us.
For having us.
Very much.
We hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. You can find all of our Inside Out podcasts at tpac.org and on your favorite podcast channels.